Hey guys, this probably wouldn't usually make it onto one of our videos because we probably wouldn't usually consider it to be about Japan as such, but it was an extremely odd thing and it is in Japan, so probably fair enough to put it on our odd stuff in Japan playlist because it qualifies as both. So today I took one of the kids to the home centre because we've been spending more time at home lately, so we went to the home centre and got some gardening type things. Spring's coming, the weather's beautiful, nice and warm, heating up. So I went to the gardening centre and just bought some stuff for the garden that we could go back and do some work on the garden with. So we'd been walking around inside the home centre. Now it's Sunday, right? And because on Sunday the home centre is pretty busy, and today was a pretty normal day at the home centre. There was old people, young people, families with kids, all sorts of people pushing trolleys around and loading them up with stuff. Pretty normal day. Probably about half of them wearing masks, as is usually the case this time of year anyway. So it was just a fairly normal day at the home centre, nothing particularly odd about that. And we went to the register. There's a register at the back of this home centre where you take big things or gardening things to get to your car. And walked up to the register, and I had one of my kids with me, and we were talking about just stuff about the garden or whatever we were going to do, something about the garden, and we're chatting away in English about what our plan was for the afternoon, you know, and hadn't really paid much attention. Noticed there was a couple of people around us. There was an older lady in front of us with grey hair, and hadn't really paid her a lot of attention. I noticed that she was an old lady because she had really grey hair, really super grey, sort of silvery hair, and camouflage pants, and she had a big pile. She had a sort of a trolley, low-wheeled trolley thing, with a big pile of press seal boxes on it. And because I was in the middle of a conversation with the little one, so I was paying attention to her. I wasn't really paying attention to the old lady. But it did sort of go through my mind that she had all those sort of big plastic boxes, you know, that you can put things in and seal them up, sort of airtight boxes, and lots of them, really big ones. And it just crossed through my mind briefly that you know, I wonder if she's hoarding food or something. But there was it sort of passed away again. It's just because it's been a topic recently, right? And today was the day we released the video about how Japanese people handle disasters, right? And we haven't seen or heard any examples of food hoarding or anything at all in Japan. So the idea sort of passed through my head and then so it went away again because, you know, we haven't seen any examples of that at all. It was just a lady with a big pile of airtight boxes, right? So anyway, we're having our conversation. We had one of the home centre trolleys, which is shopping carts, whatever you want to call them, which is a pretty big one. They're bigger than supermarket ones. They're quite big for people to put big things in. So we had that. And we always stay a fair bit back from people anyway because, you know, you don't want to run into someone's heels with your shopping trolley, do you? So with the shopping cart and then the sort of the polite distance that we gave her, she was probably a good 3-4 metres away, you know? And so we're having a little chat and suddenly she turns around, she had a mask on, and she turned around and she said, "Back off." Really aggressively, really aggressively. "Back off." And it was what? And I looked at my daughter and she looked at me and she said, "What?" And my daughter said, "What did she say?" And so I said to the lady, "What? Back off. I've got friends in Italy," really strong American accent, right? And these grey eyes. And it's like I've realised, oh wow, she's an American, right? And so it's this really strong Southern American accent. And these big grey eyes and this grey hair and the camo pants and the green shirt. "Back off! Back off! I've got friends in Italy that have died." Right. I mean, we were the register operator and other people were closer to her than we were, you know. So no idea. We're talking about it later. I mean, about half the people there had masks and half didn't. We didn't. And you know, the World Health Organization say if you've got symptoms you should wear a mask, but if you haven't got symptoms you shouldn't bother. And you know, about half the people in Japan do and about half don't, depending on where you go. You know, if you go to some big event it might be higher, but at the home centre on a Sunday it was about half. And so she was really like, right, the first thing she said, "Back off." And I'm so what? And "Back off. I've got friends in Italy that have died." Right? Oh, okay. And I said, "Is that why I couldn't help myself. I shouldn't have done it. That's twice this week I've shot my mouth off and I should have stayed quiet. I said, is that why you've got the air-sealed boxes and the camouflage pants? and she lost her mind. You know, fuck off, asshole, fuck off, asshole. Really, really angry, right? And so, again, should have shut my mouth, but I said to her, have you got a gun too? And she said, no shit, she said this really loudly, really loud. People are all turning around and looking, because, I mean, first of all, people in Japan usually don't yell. And secondly, if you even speak slightly loudly in English in Japan, people look. Because particularly around here, there's not a lot of foreigners around here. I've never seen this lady before. I don't know no idea who she is. She probably lives in an underground bunker somewhere. But people start looking because there's someone screaming in English, right? And you know, and I couldn't help myself. I said to her, "Have you got a gun too?" And she turned around and she said, "I wish I did. I'd shoot you with it." Right? It was bizarre. It was absolutely bizarre. And whoa! And then there was a staff member came over and said, "We've got another register. We're opening another register over here. Do you want to come over here?" And I said, "Yes, please," because you know, there's a little kid with me. Little kid, and the little kid's going, "Whoa!" Because people don't talk like that in Japan. There's a good chance that our child has never heard anybody talk like that before. And it really fazed her. It really fazed her. We had to have a big talk about it when we got back in the car, because it really fazed her. She sort of, do you think that angry lady's going to come and see us, you know? And I said, no, don't worry about the angry lady. Because people don't talk like that in Japan. But it was so amazing because, I mean, just on so many levels, it was amazing. One thing that came to mind was, isn't it amazing that happened today when we released the video this morning about the difference between how Japanese people handle disasters and emergencies and how people in some other countries handle disasters and emergencies. We've just been talking about that. We've just been through a home centre full of really calm, normal behaving people, and we get that experience from somebody standing at the register who obviously, you know, wasn't Japanese, and just losing her mind. Just losing her mind. That's actually how we explained it to our kid, was that she's panicking. That's what we said, because we had another person recently that we were talking about that was panicking, and so that's how we explained it. That, oh, she's just panicking. You know, she's probably a very nice lady normally, but she's just panicking. But it was just bizarre. It was just just so bizarre, you know, and so irrational. I mean, she's standing there with her hands on a shopping trolley that obviously lots of other people have been handling. She was exchanging money and receipts and goods and plastic bags with the register operator, and people all around her. She's just been, on a Sunday too, the home centre on a Sunday, that's the busiest day of the week, obviously, you know, and so she's been in there and obviously spent a lot of time buying all the press seal airtight boxes. So she's obviously spent a lot of time in there. We're the least of her problems, you know. So whether maybe the stress of the whole situation had been building up to the point and she could hear us talking behind her and she just thought she'd let it out or something, who knows what was the reason for that little outburst. But it was just insane, and the little niggly comments I gave her back just made her more and more insane. She was losing it at the end, absolutely losing it. So the staff member came over and said, "We're going to open another register. Do you want to come over here?" Yes, please. Get us away from the crazy lady. Take us away from this, you know. So just bizarre. No idea who she is. Haven't seen her around before. There are a couple of foreigners around the place here, but you know, we don't normally see them. But we'll be interested to find out who she is. if we can find out who she is, so we can avoid her in the future. But such a bizarre scene, because at first it didn't seem too bizarre, but as she went on with the raving and the craziness, then the whole picture got crazy, because you know, an old lady with silvery white hair and the mask and the camo. She had a camo style green jacket, and then the full-on camo pants with the, what do you call that, disbursement? What do they call that? With the different coloured greens and yellows, and full-on camo pants, and all the airtight boxes, and on the way back to her bunker, evidently. She wished she had a gun to shoot me with, she said, because she had friends that died in Italy. So, as you can see, not really about Japan, but certainly an odd thing, don't you think? And definitely it was in Japan. Just imparting too, look, some of our best friends American people. So we're not slagging at Americans. You know, those of you who saw the video this morning, we were talking about what's going on in Australia too. Australians are equally crazy with some Australians, and again, you know, we know a lot of really calm and collected Aussies, and we know a lot of calm and collected Americans, and you know, our patrons. We got lots of patrons that we've been exchanging all sorts of discussion with recently over all this, and we know some people are very nervous about it, some people are more relaxed about it, and there's lots of people from around the world are on a sliding scale. You know, chances are there are some Japanese people around that are really panicking about it that we haven't encountered, you know, so no doubt there are. So we're not, this isn't a slag at Americans, right? If she was an Aussie or an Italian or someone from another country, would be telling you the story anyway. The fact that she's not American, that she was American, isn't relevant. We mentioned it last time in today's video, the earlier video today, because they were the two stories that we come across the most this week. The one of the Aussies fighting in the supermarket over food, which is just tragic, isn't it? No, there's no need for it. And the Americans lining up for guns, and because we know that not all Aussies are fighting each other in the supermarkets, we know that, and we know that there's a lot of Americans who don't need a gun in a health emergency. Although that video did get a couple of people rolled up. There are some very pro-gun people on the internet, aren't there? So we know that too, and that's fine. That is fine. People who want to have guns, who live in America who want to have guns, have a right to have guns. They can have guns. We live in Japan where people don't have guns, and it works for us. It really does. But yeah, what a contrast, what an amazing thing. It was sort of like taking the two things that we'd spoken about on that video this morning, about the calm way Japanese people handle it, and the way some people panic and freak out and handle it really badly, and taking one person from that scenario where they freak out and handle it badly and putting them in with the people who are handling it really well. Because the Japanese people standing around, first of all, wouldn't have understood what she was ranting about, because, you know, the very few people here whose English is good enough to understand what she was going on about, and because she was sort of screaming and she had the mask on and she had a strong accent and the whole thing. So it's likely nobody knew what she was on about, what we'd done to upset this lady that was 3 meters away and we hadn't spoken to her. So the people behind us must have been totally confused, because she just suddenly turned around with this, "Back off!" What? And of course we didn't back off, because we're a good 3 meters away already, and there was people standing behind us with a trolley, so we didn't back off anyway. It was a very bizarre thing for her to say, because we sort of had nowhere to go. You know, we couldn't go backwards. You can't stand in a line at the register and go backwards, can you? Back off! Back off! So anyway, there it was. How weird was that? Pretty weird. It was an odd thing in Japan. More videos coming soon.